Right, guys, thanks for joining me. First of all, let's get the important stuff out of the way. Jack, we'll start with you. How are you? Family all okay? Everyone coping
Yeah, all
fine?
good, mate. Yeah, getting through it really. Not much you can do around sort of the times that we got at the minute, but everyone's good, everyone's well, and that's all you can hope for, really, isn't it? I suppose. So, yeah, just missing football.
Yeah, that's it. And then your right-hand man, George, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, mate. I'm the only one who's been furloughed in my house. So my mum and my sister work for the NHS, so they've been busy. Brother's still working. My dad's a London cab driver, so he's doing the odd bits in that. So, yeah, pretty bored, but it is what it is. Look, you just got to sometimes be thankful for what you've got and get on with it, like Jack said.
And then George, yourself?
Yeah, all good, mate. Same as Mr. Christou, I've been furloughed as well. Dad's been calling me Furlough Fred around the house. So yeah, we're all good. Me, mum, and dad just staying at home doing the right things and trying to keep as well as possible.
And Graham, yourself?
Yeah, pretty much like everyone else has said. Right, all healthy, all good. Obviously, work's taken a bit of a dive. I'm concerned about that. If I'm brutally honest, we import from Italy and supply hotels, so you couldn't make that up. But listen, life's more important, and hopefully we'll come out of it very, very soon. And the new normal that everyone keeps talking about, we'll see what that is. So, but yeah, health-wise, good. Thanks.
Good. We'll start with you anyway, as you're making your debut with us on the first call we've done and first video we've done. Obviously, last season was quite successful for the club. What does that mean to you, obviously, having the club being the success we are?
Well, firstly, I'd like to point out the reason I'm here is I obviously didn't get the email last week when you had Celebrity Square with
A-listers, yeah,
with Craig and Magic Johnson and the gaffer. So I felt I'd better take your offer up this week. What does it mean to me to see where we are? It's fantastic. I've been chairman for 19, 20 years now, something like that. And it used to be sort of two men and a dog coming to Aveley, and the next week it was just a dog because the two blokes had decided that they didn't want to come anymore. So they were difficult. They were difficult times, and in that time I've been chairman, there's been a few false dawns. We're going to move. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. So to see it finally happen with the facilities we've got now, it's fantastic. I've said it before. We should never, and I'm going to say this without crying because it normally makes me cry. That's why I don't actually speak, because I always end up crying, and it's crazy. But Craig Johnson, Lynn Johnson, you can't. No words can describe what they've done for the club, and they're the reason that we managed to get it through. But there were some really stressful moments getting that ground done. But it's done now. We gave ourselves little targets. You know, if we can go from the man and his dog to 250, 300 every week and get new guys in, new supporters wanting to come to Aveley every week, we've done that. I suppose it's testament to us that other clubs kind of they compare their crowds to Aveley's now, and that's a compliment to us. So yeah, it's fantastic, and long may it continue. Means a lot to me. So yeah, good.
George, obviously you've been around the squad and stuff a while, and you're quite close to a lot of the players. And what do you think was sort of key last year to the success?
I don't know. I just think it was quite nice that we managed to keep hold of majority of the squad that we had last year. And I don't think we was too far away last year. Obviously, with Danny and Gary coming in, and it just unfortunately it just wasn't meant to be towards the back end of last season. But we managed to keep the boys we had, improve where we needed to, and they're just actually Tog and George will back me up as well. They're just like a big bunch of mates, and who really want to work hard for each other. And I think that's kind of like the biggest thing. And then with Keith as well, it wasn't rocket science. We had a good team. We just kind of lost our way a little bit on the pitch. And if you bring a man of his experience in and his knowledge, then you're never going to go too far wrong if you just kind of give give the players instructions, and then they know what they're doing, and just makes life as easy as possible, really. But other than that, that's kind of it. We just the boys had a bit more guidance, as I said, with Keith, and obviously with George and Jack as well, and then just left it down to them. There was nothing really. It wasn't as though we had to kind of pick our brains as to why didn't we go up, why did this happen, why did that happen, because it was all there. All we just needed was someone to say, okay, boys, you go and do that, and then I think it's kind of easy to see the success we've had, and then it's obviously it was unlucky that the season's finished, but it would have been nice to see where we would have ended up with how we was going.
George, the same question for you.
Yeah, I think Keith gave us a sort of identity. Like George just said, we kept a lot of the boys from the previous year, and if you look in this division in the last, say, 5-6 years, a lot of the teams who win leagues or get promoted have got a core group, and each season they add to it. You look at Bowers, for example, just for an example. They had as core, each season they added to it, and then last season, or the season before last, that they run away with it. And I think it was key to keep certain players, and we added. Keith gave us an identity, and the boys had a game plan to go out with, and yeah, the rest is sort of history. They just stuck to it, and all guns blazing, I suppose. I think going 2 up top for us helped us a lot. People were used to seeing Jason Rad in the middle of the park. Now he's on the left or on the right, where he's just got to beat a fullback and he's into the box. People couldn't deal with him for 2 or 3 months. People didn't know how to mark Jason. And then you look at Alex and George Sykes from, say, November to January, they must have scored 15 goals each, probably setting each other up for 10 of those. Yeah, that was the real plus thing. I think them two, the way they worked together, it was just something that clicked automatically. It was quite scary, actually. From day one, they just sort of clicked, and it looked like they've been playing together for 3 or 4 seasons. But again, if we can keep that core and add to it if need be, then I think we'll get more success.
Jack, you got anything else on that?
No, I mean, I think everyone sort of said it all. Really, it's going back to what George said. It just felt like a family atmosphere. Like people would do anything for each other on that pitch. If we had to get through it, we would get through it, and people would drag each other through. Even if you weren't having maybe the best game, it was such a close-knit group of players that they were unstoppable, weren't they? At points in the season last year, they were unstoppable, and absolute credit to them for some of the big games that they had to play as well in the trophy, because they had big games in that. And people say, oh, you can step up for one game and that sort of thing, and we stepped up for 3 or 4 big games and got through it. And when you count into it the replays we had in that competition as well, like we drew and then had to beat the team. So going from sort of downers, maybe when you look away at Carl Sholton, you sort of go on the Saturday, yeah, all right, we threw away a game away to Carl Sholton. In order for the boys to bounce back the way they did at home on that Monday, was it's credit to them. They had the disheartening of maybe throwing away the victory on the Saturday, but they bounced back really, really fast on the Monday evening, and it was just as if like nothing had happened. And we go again, we get through it together, and I think that was credit. That was part of the winning formula this year. It was
I think as well, like even when Keith gave them the night off, they'd be down at Parkside watching another game, or they'll go for dinner together, or after a game. I think it was Boxing Day. I don't think there was about 10 or 15 of us. We didn't leave. If it was a 1 o'clock kickoff, we didn't leave the bar till 10 o'clock that night. And it's just a lot of the time they just want to be in each other's company, and I think that really helps.
Yeah,
they get on so well.
You see a lot of that on Thursday night.
Yeah, exactly. On Thursday night, 10:30, 11, they're trying to kick everyone out, and everyone still wants to stay. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah. Poor old Maureen wants to go home and go to bed, and he's thinking, Alex is like, can I have one more Guinness? One more.
Yeah, one more round. Yeah.
One more round.
Graham, I suppose we'll come to you on that one. And just on the pitch, what impressed you most, would you say, last year?
I think that one of the important things to say about last year is, and because we had so much success in the end, and that kind of took off the edge of where we started from last season. And I think it's important to mention that. You know, season before last, James resigned, went, and we had that little surge. So the two guys carried on, and to basically have all of the pre-season and then find ourselves where we are, you know, a week before that Barking game. We you know, I know my George says about you know, the squad, but we had a lot of players, good players, leave in the summer. You know, I was devastated when Richo went, Freeman, they've gone.
Bano as well.
Bano as well. We didn't replace those players, and then that time to get players, because we had one or two that would have come. Obviously, Chris went. He didn't. There were issues that he didn't particularly didn't like there. So we had a really bad summer, to the point where, and I have to credit certain people there, our senior players. You know, that when the turmoil was going on, you couldn't believe the amount of times our players were approached. You know, Hughesy, nicest man in the world, Dave Hughes. You know, everyone wanted him. Withers had offers. Lovey was there. A Croffey. How many offers did we have for a Croffey? From one or two levels higher, and they stuck with us. George, Jack, you know, looking around for players. It's important to remember where we came from at the start of last season, because we, you know, the amount of times I'm on the phone to John. A Croffey. We don't want to go into why a Croffey's called John. It's not. We haven't got enough time.
Haven't got enough time.
I'm on the phone. Who are we gonna? You know, we need someone to help you. We need this. And Connor's doing the same. Even with us, senior, for stepping into the breach when we needed a senior figure to go in the dressing room with George and Jack. No, George and Jack, not because you're part of Celebrity Squares today, but you did a fantastic job in that period. And for me, yeah, Notts County away, brilliant. But although that still wasn't the highlight for me of last season, but don't forget that I don't know whether turmoil was quite the word, but we were in a bit of a mess at the start of the season, and we've come back from that. I think, you know, signing the boy Sags, you know, he came in, love George Sykes. He brings 400 people with him every week, and to get him in, yeah, there was a point where it turned. But let's not forget the issues we had to deal with at the start of the season. And I think that for me sums up where we actually came from. Yeah, highlights for me. It's not Notts County. That was the icing on the cake for a lot of people. My best moment last year, Taunton away. Taunton away was absolutely fantastic. Yeah. It was at a time when the weather was bad. Well, we were going to have to go. You know, we'd got East Grinstead out of the way. We'd beaten Bowers at home with 10 men.
Thanks to Goody, 28 minutes.
Well,
yeah. On his home debut, I'm thinking.
You've got to love him, Goody, haven't you? You have absolutely got to love red card. Yeah, he gets sent off, and then you go, right, who are we going to get? Who are we going to get? Taunton away, you think, what have we done? It's a long way. We're driving down there. I can picture it, Stonehenge on the right hand side, absolutely thinking, what are we doing here? We've got to come.
Winding Jerry up on the bus to say it'd been off.
Yeah, you get there, and I think the crowd that day, it must have been buy one get one free, 400. There was double that in there that day, and they were giving it to. They were a good side, a really good side, and I know I said it on the coach on the way home, but that was probably one of my best days as chairman of Aveley. You know, East Thurrock, what happened there all those years ago when we got promoted. But that day last season, you know, talking about Goody again, having his little rap on the way home, and George Sykes having a sing. That day for me was last season. Notts County, yeah, great, you know, but that will always stick in my mind. some of the goals we scored. I'm rattling away, all right, but you did ask. Some of the goals we scored, and we scored a lot. You know, you mentioned that period. Romford, however many it was, 5, Grays, 6. Haybridge, yeah. The goal George Sykes scored against Grays, the first one, curls in. The goal I celebrated the most was a Croffy's goal. We just, Chelmsford had just drawn level, hadn't they? And we go up the other end, he scores. That for me just was, forget Dagenham John's goal. We should have run it in at the corner flag, but he decided to burn the shot. It would those things for me. Jason's goal against Taunton in the replay, that fabulous goal. So it's those little moments. But the start of the season for me, when we were so up against it, and I'm thinking, oh my good God, what have we got here? And we turn that round and get the moments I've just said. So there you go. I'm finished.
Jack, we go back to you then. Obviously, with you and George, you've worked together for a while, but if I'm right in saying that's the first season in men's first team football, is it as well for you too?
Yeah.
How did you find that?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's sort of what Graham was saying, really. You go from the start of it, and you sort of go from, you know, we moved into the sort of first team sort of setup with sort of at the start of the season, and it was sort of like that was a little bit out of the blue as it was anyway. We didn't really realise that we would go sort of straight in with everything sort of off the bat, and then when whatever it was, 1 game in or 2 games in, whatever it was, Gary and Danny sort of left, and it was sort of a strange situation because we obviously we was in charge of a couple of games with us, and that was brilliant to sort of get a little bit of experience in sort of that sort of setup, and then to go from there to Keith was really good, to be fair, because it gave us another outlook on how somebody else works within the game who's been in the game for a long time and who's very, very successful in what he's done previous. So it was a bit of a whirlwind in a sense, from sort of not really thinking we'd have much input at the start of the year to then sort of being there sort of all the time and on the bench and the changing room and all that sort of stuff. I think it was sort of brilliant from our sort of point of view. And, you know, it's long may it continue. I mean, we've got good people at the club and good players, good staff, and, you know, if we kick on and we go again, there's no reason we can't sort of kick on for next year and do the same or better. You know, there's no reason of that whatsoever. So yeah, really looking forward to what the future holds, really.
George, what would you say is what you learned the most about yourself last year in regards to coaching?
Where you're working with reserve players, we always work with younger players, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. And yeah, you want to breed it into them. It's about winning on a Saturday and going away from home and trying to take 3 points. But it's about the development in a sense. Look, you can win a league, but if you don't produce any players for your first team, it's a bit pointless in a sense. Whereas going into that first team environment when you know every point matters and 3 points is vital on a Saturday and stuff like that, it was just a big eye-opener at first. But like Jack said, to learn from someone like Keith, we're really lucky, and for the next however long it continues, we'll learn a lot. Even in the last, say, 6 months, we've come on leaps and bounds because of him, and he pulls us aside and he talks us about little things. And then what I love about Keith is he trusts us to do things, and he trusts us to bring in players that we know and stuff like that. So yeah, it's worked really well. And with the new coach coming on board as well, he's another person that we can learn a lot off. He's been in the game for a long time. He's won many leagues and cups and stuff like that. So it's only going to benefit the likes of me and Jack, because we're only at the start of our sort of senior career, and we've got many years to learn from people like that.
George, coming back across to you then, obviously your dad just mentioned about his moments of the season and stuff. What would be yours?
If we were to get a result at Carshalton, I think Carshalton for me would have been, or sorry, for me, would have been my performance of the season. I think for those, I've not seen us play better. If you could take 60 minutes of the game, but those first 60 minutes against Carshalton when we were 3-0 up, I've not seen us play as good as that all season. So if we would have won there, I would have said Carshalton, but Chelmsford. Just the whole day. Obviously, I think it would have added a bit if Rod would have still been in charge of Chelmsford. Obviously, everyone was saying, Rod versus Keith, them two going back into battle. But there were still the same players that Rod had at Chelmsford. There was no, they weren't a completely different side playing us that day. And it proved how well they were doing in their league. And for us to go and I think outplay them for 90 minutes was testament to the boys. And I think Dad mentioned Dagenham John's goal, but sometimes I was laying in bed before I'm going to go to sleep and just scroll through my photos and just keep pressing play on that. And because it makes me laugh. When he picks it up, if you listen carefully, you can hear Hughesy shout in the background saying time, as he does. And then he just picks it up, drives forward and smacks it top bins. So Chelmsford was probably my moment of the season.
I think Chelmsford that day they made because Rod went not too far away from that game. Didn't
I think he was like
they made a massive mistake getting rid of him. They made a massive mistake getting rid of him anyway. Rod Stringer, I love him to bits because he gave Aveley one of the other times. But I would say with the two best times the two best periods I've ever had at Aveley have involved Keith. And that's probably that's not a coincidence. The time with Rod, and then having him back now, they have got to be the two best times. But yeah, sorry, George. Yeah, I just think Chelmsford made a bit of a faux pas getting rid of him. And if they did want to get rid of him, they should have waited because he wouldn't want to have wanted to get beat at Aveley. That's for sure. And I think he still would have got beat because we were magnificent again that day. And in fairness to Keith, he really had our tactics spot on that day. Probably same tactics as he has every other week, 4-4-2, and play on the front foot. But what I want to do is on the away team changing room when Keith's in charge, just write on the wall, this is how we're going to play. Try and stop us, because we just do that. What we do under Keith is brilliant, and we're lucky to have him with the two guys we've got on today, and now to have John as part of that team. Although again, I want to call another point of order there. Those two were struggling to take the who was responsible for it and take all the plaudits for John. So when John did go from East Thurrock, I said he'd be a fantastic addition to us. So you heard it first, and now he is with us, and it will be when next season finally does get going. It will be a fantastic addition to have with us. So.
Jack, your moment of the season?
Moment of the season, yeah, I think it's Chelmsford. There was no beating that, was there? I don't think. I think that was just absolutely. I mean, obviously, the whole Nottingham experience was good. Going to Nottingham, that sort of experience, going up there, and I think the Taunton time was. I think that was very beneficial for the team, Taunton. I think we needed an away journey like that for everyone to bond how they bonded on the coach on the way there and the coach on the way back. I think that was such a key moment for how people bonded with each other. It sort of from then it sort of sparked. I mean, everyone was friends anyway, but from there it just sort of sparked something that it was part of a winning formula. Sometimes you can't put your finger on how sometimes the team perform and how they play and how they do things, but having an amazing dressing room and having the close knit group of players that you do, you add that to obviously like the knowledge of Keith and the sort of things that he says and the instructions he gives on the day of a game or in his training sessions and things like that. You add that together, and it's tough. It's tough to beat that. It is tough to beat that, and I think the Taunton trip was very beneficial for the season. That gelled us so well, and but yeah, for me, Chelmsford when Alex Akrofi scored, that was incredible. But when John put it on bins, you couldn't write that. I don't think that was just insane. It was absolutely insane. But
before we finish on Taunton, you mentioned there the one of the things that I want to say with Taunton, yeah, it was an experience. Their crowd were right on top of us, shall we say, near the mark sometimes. But the one thing I loved about Taunton, when they came to our place on the Monday and got beat, their management team stood there and went, do you know what? Aveley were magnificent tonight. They deserve to beat us. And everyone else who we beat at a higher level, it's funny, they all had an off day against us. Everyone had an off day that we played. How's your luck? Is that a coincidence? But Taunton, they actually said that Aveley's tactics were magnificent. They'd learned on the Saturday. The guy in the middle who looked like Jay Leader, who I think is one of the best players who's ever played for Aveley, Jay Leader, tall fella, nullified him. And they saw that and gave us credit for it and said we deserve to win. Everyone else, yeah, we had an off day and we didn't have him. And Johnny Chucklenuts had an hamstring injury. And there was always a reason why Aveley beat them. And Taunton from that day. Good luck, boys. So yeah, there'll always be a team that I look out for their results, and when it gets going, I hope they get what they deserve, because they were a fantastic club. Long way to go. Wouldn't want to go there again.
Pre-season,
pre-season, but yeah, and everyone, yeah, Aveley now but they actually come out and said, do you know what? How good are you? And credit to them for that. So there you go.
And then George, your one.
League-wise, I'd say a big game for us, I think, was at home to Histon. With Keith had just come into charge. With his first game was Malden, and Malden were flying at the time, and they beat us. And then we played Histon. We had a lot of injuries. Alex was suspended. We stuck young Reggie up front with Shad. We're losing 2-0, and that second half just rejuvenated it. That's when we got going, and we come back. We won 3-2, and it was a massive actual result for the team togetherness, for the older senior players to see that your likes of Reggie and Kane can chip in with the goals and help. And Joe Elliott was playing at right back, who did really well that day. So that was big. But like Jack said, you're not going to get better than Chelmsford. And the funny thing is with that Chelmsford, when they got rid of Rod, that set our tail weight. We knew that we could beat them. And I remember in the change room on the day, like before kickoff, not one of them boys were nervous, not one of them boys were worried. Whereas previous rounds, you're playing your Hornchurches, your Cole Sholtons, and you know, this player's good, that player's good. Whereas Chelmsford, there was no fear for any of them. They just went out there and played their heart out, and we got the right result. And it was fully deserved. Like somebody else just said, it was fully deserved. But yeah, John's goal is just something that you're never going to forget. It gives you goosebumps remembering. And then away at Notts County, when they clapped us off, getting 4,000 or 5,000 fans clapping you off. The Aveley fans were brilliant that day, by the way.
Yeah,
that was incredible. But for all the Notts County fans to stand there and clap us off was something that will live with me forever.
Cool. Right, we'll end it how I've been ending a couple of the last calls then. Totally off Aveley. George, we'll start with you, George Jennings. In the games that you've been to watch, who's the best player you've seen live?
From our team, or
It's entirely up to you. If you've seen Messi play, you choose Messi, mate. It's up to you.
Sure. And I'm thinking Aveley, best player I've seen live. Probably I'm gonna go Carlos Tevez. I think that day, when we are picking a specific game, when me and Dad went to the year he kept us up at United, and
thanks for that.
That's no, mate, no worries. Just what I mentioned it. That year I think Tevez or Pyatt for me, best player I've seen. Yeah, the last season when Upton Park, Pyatt was quite special that season, I think.
George?
I'm a Chelsea fan, and we used to have season tickets to Chelsea. For me, it'd have been Zola. He could just switch it on. There was one game, I think it's been documented in the recent years, when Carragher is in the corner flag with him and he's just toying with him, and he goes round one, he comes back, he does him again. And yeah, Zola was a special player for me growing up. He was just incredible.
Jack?
For me, it would be Nigel Rio-Coker. No, I'm joking. It'd be Thierry Henry for me. I mean, I have seen Messi play on a number of occasions, and I actually saw Messi play when he played an international game at Upton Park, Argentina versus Brazil, possibly. I think it might have been. And the atmosphere was weird. Whenever he touched the ball, the atmosphere was unbelievable, and he was unbelievable, and he is unbelievable. But I would have to say on a regular basis when going over and watching Arsenal, it was Thierry Henry. Some of the things that guy could do was phenomenal. And when he actually came back to us and scored his legendary trademark sort of goal at Leeds, unfortunately I wasn't there that day, but that would have been absolutely insane as well. So yeah, it would have to be the king, Thierry Henry.
And Graham, finally yours.
I'm an old man. I've been going to West Ham for a long time, so I'm gonna pick a player that's played for West Ham, and for me, it would have to be Paolo Di Canio. Some of the things that period that he was at West Ham, I actually, you don't have to go to football. You don't have to go. I actually looked forward to going to West Ham at that time with that team, and you had Di Canio, Schemmel, Trevor Sinclair, Lampard, all of those guys in the same side. We never won anything. We never do. But having watching some of the things that guy and the famous goal he scored against Wimbledon, where Sinclair's watched it in. Our seat was right behind that, and you saw it where it was going. So for me, him really, and just the charismatic way that he was, with the sending off at Sheffield Wednesday and all of those. He was just a magic man. So yeah, for me, it would be Paolo Di Canio.